You think a wood stove is just a cozy box that makes fire, until the night your cabin fills with smoke, the glass turns black, and the heat you were counting on disappears like a bad promise. Every winter, thousands of beginners make the same quiet mistakes, and the dangerous part is, they don't look like mistakes at first. They look like warmth, they smell like pine. And by the time you realize what's wrong, your fuel is gone, your chimney is choking, and the cold is pressing against the walls like it's alive. Listen closely, because a wood stove isn't just comfort, it's controlled combustion, physics, airflow, and human patience working together. The first trap is burning wood that feels dry but isn't. You pick up a log, it's light, it cracks a little, maybe you bought it from someone who swore it was seasoned, and you toss it in thinking more wood equals more heat. What you actually get is steam. Wet wood wastes enormous energy boiling off internal moisture before it ever becomes flame, dropping combustion temperatures so low that smoke turns into creosote, that sticky black tar that lines your chimney like arteries clogging with cholesterol. The science is brutally simple. Efficient combustion needs high temperatures and oxygen, and water steals both. That lazy orange flame you see isn't cozy. It's incomplete combustion throwing unburned fuel into your flue, where it waits for the perfect moment to ignite. The experienced burner listens for sharp cracking sounds and watches for pale blue secondary flames, because those are signs the gases themselves are burning clean. Then there's the rookie move of starving the fire for too long because you're afraid of using up fuel. You close the air vents, trying to stretch a log overnight, and the stove settles into a smolder. It feels clever, until the room fills with that heavy campfire smell and the chimney begins building a glossy layer of soot. A wood stove isn't a candle you choke slowly. It's an engine that wants bursts of oxygen to burn off volatile gases. When airflow drops too low, combustion shifts into a low-temperature chemical process that produces carbon monoxide, a gas you'll never smell even while it replaces oxygen in your bloodstream. That's why seasoned survivalists talk about airflow like it's oxygen for you, not just the fire. Another mistake nobody warns you about is overfiring during those first freezing nights. You finally get a strong draft going, flames roaring, metal glowing brighter than usual, and you feel unstoppable. But steel and cast iron expand when overheated, seals warp, internal baffles crack, and suddenly your forever stove loses efficiency in one winter. The physics here is thermal stress. Metal wants to expand evenly, but intense hotspots create microscopic fractures that grow over time. Beginners often think more heat equals safety, but a stove pushed beyond design limits becomes unpredictable, burning through wood faster and weakening the very system you depend on. And here's a mistake that feels almost invisible: ignoring the chimney itself. You can have the best stove in the world, perfectly cut wood, careful airflow, and still struggle because the chimney is too cold. Cold flues kill draft. Draft is simply the buoyancy of hot air rising, pulling fresh oxygen into the firebox, and if your chimney walls are freezing, smoke stalls and spills back inside. That's why experienced burners start small, hot fires to warm the flue before loading heavier logs. It's not superstition, it's fluid dynamics. Warm air rises faster, creating a pressure difference that keeps smoke moving upward instead of sideways into your living space. Then there's ash, the thing beginners obsessively clean out because they think a spotless firebox is more efficient. In reality, a thin bed of ash acts like insulation, reflecting heat back into new fuel and stabilizing combustion temperatures. Strip the stove down to bare metal every morning and you force the fire to rebuild its thermal foundation from zero, wasting fuel and creating unstable burns. Survival manuals often mention conserving heat like it's currency, and that tiny gray layer at the bottom of your stove is basically a savings account. One of the strangest beginner habits is loading wood the same way every time without watching how the flame behaves. Fire isn't static, it's a living chemical reaction shaped by spacing, orientation, and airflow channels. Stack logs too tightly and you suffocate the burn. Throw them randomly, and flames lose direction, licking unevenly and cooling faster. Cross-stacking, or creating small air gaps, allows gases to ignite above the logs, producing that clean secondary burn that extracts nearly all the energy from the wood. This isn't just about efficiency, it's about survival math. A well-run stove can double the heat output from the same pile of firewood, which means fewer risky trips outside during storms, and fewer nights rationing warmth. This section is based on practical field survival experience, rather than formal academic sources. And finally, the mistake that sneaks up on almost everyone: treating a wood stove like a heater instead of a system. You focus on the flame, but forget the room, the walls, the airflow of the entire space. Heat rises, collects near ceilings, and leaves your feet freezing while you keep feeding the fire higher and hotter. Real efficiency comes from circulation, ceiling fans on low, slightly cracked interior doors, or even repositioning furniture so convection currents move freely. The biology side of survival matters here too. Your body loses heat fastest through extremities, so balancing room temperature can reduce fuel consumption because you're warming people, not just air. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you when you first buy a stove. Winter doesn't punish obvious mistakes, it punishes small repeated ones. A little damp wood, a slightly choked airflow, a chimney you'll clean next weekend, and suddenly you're burning twice the fuel for half the heat. The stove becomes a demanding creature that eats your time and gives back less every day. But when you understand the physics, combustion temperature, airflow dynamics, thermal mass, the entire experience shifts. The fire sounds different, burns cleaner, and the glass stays clear enough that you can see those ghost-like blue flames dancing above the logs. Proof that you're not just burning wood, you're burning the invisible gases that most beginners waste. So if this winter feels harsher than the last, don't blame the cold yet. Watch your smoke, listen to the flame, feel the draft when you open the door. Because a wood stove is honest. It tells you exactly what's wrong if you pay attention. And once you stop making these quiet beginner mistakes, you'll realize something strange. The same pile of firewood that barely got you through a week suddenly lasts nearly twice as long, and the silence of a warm room during a storm feels less like luck and more like control.